welcome back, modelers. So we're going to get into the fun part of the build. We're going to get into the weathering. So we've continued on, and there's a few things. Oh, it looks like that needs to be secured in there a little bit better. But we're getting into the portion where we're now making this a little bit of a dirty bird, okay? So I've gone in, just done a basic panel wash with dark gray with just the MIG stuff, just standard panel line wash, and mix that in. The only thing that's special maybe that I did with that is there's a few areas that you can see in here where I did some stippling as I came in. And there's a few places where it stuck a little bit more, and I just kind of went in and maybe reduced it by just painting over it and all that. You can see a little bit more evidence of the stippling here that I've gone in. So beyond that, I've got into the decals. Put that on there. I should probably talk about that first before I forget. The decals, haven't been the perfect decals. So initial tests with the vertical stabilizer went pretty well, but I was hoping for a little bit more when I got into the rest of the decals. It's borderline to where I wish I used better decals. So the problem that I've ran into is they're a little bit thick, and so the wash has just kind of pulled around the decals, and so I've had to do some cleanup with that. That hasn't been the most fun. What I should have done is gone in, and I've had to do this after the fact, but getting in and having clear coat around it, and then getting in this like 1200 grit sandpaper or sanding sponge, and just work that in until it just kind of blends in with it. So that's been a little annoying. I've had to do a little bit of post work with that and making sure that the decal film doesn't show up. Silvering hasn't been much of an issue. Just used all the techniques we've, shown in previous videos. So that's been working out a-okay there. But a few more touch-ups that I need to do. And you can see how the wash kind of helped out with the top. Left some areas a little more dirty than others. There's a few things that I might take another look at and look at a little deeper. It looks like I need to fix that panel line a little bit. But that's where we're at with here. So what we're going to be talking about and experimenting with today is just streaks, oil streaks. There's all sorts of hydraulics and everything that's going on with this craft. So I'm going to show you on those moving surfaces how we can get some of that going on, especially on the bottom of this thing. The bottom, there's all sorts of just leaks coming out of every different portion, and especially when these are out in deployment. That's what I'm trying to depict as something where it's 50 missions in or so, and so it has a bit of work. So I'm going to show you two different methods. There's the more popular, well, newer up-and-coming thing is using something like this weathering pencil to get some fine little streaks that are coming out of maybe some rivets, some things like that. But the bulk of our work is going to be good old oils. So I've got my oil palette here. I've got black, some blue, some brown, some white, and we're going to do some mixing around with that to get into a color that, can suffice for oil, which, to be honest, mostly going to be just black. But you need to give it a little bit of contrast here. So it's not just like I just made a streak just out of black. So gonna incorporate a little bit of blue. And this is really like the moment I feel like Bob Ross. If anything, this is my Bob Ross moment. I'm just gonna make some happy streaks on this thing, okay? So something like that. I mean, you don't have to be too picky when it comes to these colors and everything. Just regular black, regular white is a little bit boring, right? So the fun zone is where we have that in between. So I'm going to take just teeny bits of dots and put it in certain areas where we have moving surfaces, things that are going to be expecting to have a little bit of leaks coming out. So just a little drop here. Drop oil there. Just a little dot. Don't need much. And then when something is running through speed brakes, And for now, we're just going to start on those zones. Okay. So next, I need to grab a paper towel. We want to have a brush. I like this AK brush. I'm not a painter, so I don't know what kind of type of brush head that is, but whatever this is, it works really great for this streaking. But some of the other brushes we'll show you here that's just kind of a flat head to just drag it on. Work goes great as well. The key to this, we want it just a little bit of moisture in there. I'm going to dip it into some mineral spirits. Right now it's got too much on it. I'm going to try to work as much as I can off from there. And now for the streaking. Okay, so just a drag in the direction of airflow. And then clean it up in between those so we don't get it gunked up too much with residual oil. Okay. And get it dry once again with our paper towel. Now, a lot of people, this is where they would stop. Hey, cool, well, it's oil and I streaked it, it's streaked oil, right? Well, no, we want to actually reduce it even more so it's faint. So I'm going to be doing some more dragging. More cleaning. And if you're doing this right, it can be very therapeutic. Okay, now with that, I don't know what I'm thinking of that result. Looks a little... The cool thing about these is we have an erase button, okay? So since I put in a clear coat on that, I can just wash that off pretty easy, right? So there is a reset button with this. That's why I like the oils, is I can always just come back into it and say, I really don't like where that's at. Let's reset, right? And then for here, so what I want to do is make sure it's blended, right? So I'm taking that, and you can see how there's still probably too much on there still, but... And we're just kind of playing around with the oils, shaping it into where we actually want it in the end, right? So a little bit of that. And you can see I had it a little bit too long maybe. So you can just erase just the end there. Okay, so there's some pieces there. But that needs a little bit more just kind of blending. It's a little bit strong there. That's the fun with oil. You can move that around, play around with it. If you don't like it, erase it. Okay, so let's try again with this side. Maybe have a little more lines. Let's drag there. Once again, I just keep cleaning, because what's bad is you get into where you have residual oil on there and you're trying to make the streaks smaller, and you just apply more oil and it just goofs it up. So we don't want that. We really kind of want it to be too strong at first, and then we're erasing and blending till we get to where we like it. And it's just one of those things where you just gotta just keep playing around with it. Cool thing is, like I said, you have a reset button. If it doesn't look good, start over. If I wanted to, I could practice on this guy and do all these streaks and put it on, erase it, put it on, erase it, put it on, erase it. As much as you want. Now, one thing that I'm noticing is you want it to be a little bit logical. The oil's coming from where it should be coming from, but you also don't want it to be like too uniform, right? So we have this, it seems like I put out a ruler and put a dot every like 5 millimeters. So try to create a little bit more disparity there and get into something like that. Okay, so there's that portion. Let's play around in some other areas that get into some gook. So I'm gonna do a little bit more of a brown and black mix. Okay, since we got the engines right below here, there's got to be some seepage and stuff coming out. So we have that. Okay, and just to experiment, we're going to use this brush this time, which is a cheaper brush, just Hobby Lobby. Oh, I know this was from the Joann's, I think, even. So nothing special by any means, but same technique. Drag, clean, drag, clean, wash on, wash off. Okay. Like I said, a lot of people right now, this is where they would stop. They'd just stop right here, not do anything else. And you can see it really, I don't know, looks like a toddler reached into his diaper and just smeared. It's not exactly what we're trying to portray. So we're gonna erase where we don't want it. Create a little bit more drag. Just let the oils do what they want to do, in a way. Actually, no. Tell them who's boss. All right. Okay, and just complete that over on these. Just about erase that one. It's gone a little bit too much. So just use the edge of it. Just try to get to the edges and blend it in a little bit. The flat part to just kind of get it so it's dragged on. And if you want, you could even grab some of that. Try to apply in a different area. That works out pretty good too. All right. So first start pretty good. Now we want to vary the colors up a bit. And it's also good to note into getting a reference material and making sure what we are doing is real to where we would have this stuff accumulate. I almost feel like I should have some soothing music going on with this. Here we go. Now we're cooking. Okay. So those are going to be some of the main areas. see if I've got the flaperons near me. Probably going to be the most dirty. Oh. But I do have the air brakes. Okay. So let's move these aside and start doing a little bit on the air brakes. So basically same thing, just random dots, but logical in its randomness. You got to think about where oil would flow, and so I would imagine, when I'm looking at it, that it'd be close to these roots where it actually has the attachment point. So I want to make sure those are well utilized. And drag. Beautiful. Okay, but we're not done, remember? Got to blend that in. Make sure we got those in. And this is a smaller part, we can get in quite a bit closer. So just kind of blending in. You can do some of this blending with the edges with like a smaller brush, but I found just the side of this, so you don't have to transition as much, works pretty well. Yellow drag. And if you have to do a little bit of a redo on this, that's fine. We kind of do want layers. Because it's not like oil just leaked one day out of the whole deployment. It's kind of a residual buildup over time, right? So I'm just trying to get to the sides of the streak. Blend that in. There you go. Some of those might be a little long, so I can just come in and erase the tails of them. Something like that. Okay, so let's come back to this guy. Maybe do a little more of a brownish dots. That right there. That's quite a bit of oil. That's going to be nice and juicy. Let's see. I can just push that around a little. That's fine. That works. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. I might need to make this guy a little bit more dirty to even it up. So let's add a few more drops. Okay, so it's looking pretty good. One thing that you'll note, it seems like all the streaks just go all the way to the end. All of them are equal length, which could be believable on something that's like a speed brake, but I'm going to make some of these shorter. So you can just use that mineral spirits just to kind of erase that. And there we go. Cool. So I think that's a pretty good result. As always, whenever I'm doing something with weathering, I'm going to come back to it maybe 24 hours later, take another look at it and go, I thought that was okay. Ooh, my goodness, no. We're erase. And we can come back after 24 hours and completely erase it with this mineral spirits. So it'll be perfectly fine and we can come back to it. But I don't trust my eyes in the moment. I have to come back to it a little bit later. Okay, so now back to the big bird. And let's do some stippling in a few different areas. So with that, I've got my cheap brush. I don't know. Once again, I don't know what the name of this, but it's very much a coarse fiber. I got this just in the craft area. Very cheap. Works for that. I'm going to also... Yeah, let's use the big guy. Use a mop. That I do know. This is a mop, but partially because, you know, it says right on the thing that mop. Okay, so for here, I think strategic area, probably got a few areas where I've already done it, but I think I need a little bit more coverage in there. So I'm going to put some oil. Certain areas, actually from there. Okay, now instead of doing a streak, we're going to get our brush still like 1% damp kind of thing, mostly dry. And we're going to come into it and I'm going to have to get this further out. So we are going to just stipple. It's one of those things where it's just going to look ugly at first, right? And we can also push this around and put a few other spots. Just that little dot goes a long way. So, stipple over here. Okay. And at this point, obviously way too much. So I'm going to get my mop brush with just a little bit of the good stuff in it. And just use the mop to blend that in. And just move it around to strategic areas. And if you want to, you could even grab a ear swab here and do a similar action and remove a good amount of it. Or maybe I want this whole area right here to be a little more clean and just swipe it away. And then come back and give it that texture. Ooh, sorry for bumping the camera. This thing has a long stick to it. Okay, so we got that. Do a little bit of blending over here. Some areas over there. Okay. So now we've got our oil that's also a little bit more dry. Well, that's where we're looking at here. So now I kind of want to do some more blending with some of these. Now that I have fresh eyes on it. And then it's drier, it's going to be a little bit trickier. But just give it a little more blending, maybe a little bit too much there. Whoops. Okay. But some of those streaks, they look a little lonely. We're going to give them some more. And I think, yeah, I'm getting into some uniformity. So I'm going to make sure, maybe make a long streak right here. And a long one right there. Just give it nice, plenty of juice. Ooh. Maybe too much juice on that one. Maybe separate this into two. That one's pretty good. Bit too much. All right, just blend that in. Okay, and then for this big goober, I'm going to take off as much as I can right there. Now we're getting into something a little more believable. All right, so. Guess I've just out of words, been talking too much. All right, so it's coming along, but I think it's going to require a little bit more work. But what we're going to do is just continue on, and it's going to be a lot of just the same stuff, just over and over, clean up these streaks to where look how we want them to. So last, let's talk about these pencils. See if it's a better, easier way. One thing that's definitely different is the fine little teeny streaks. So I'm going to put some on the top here. And so start at the rivet and just kind of move it. Now it's important to put this onto matte, so put this onto satin, and I'm hoping that's enough. So I just got a little bit in the rivet and then dragged it back just a little bit. And then I'm gonna grab that same brush. I'm gonna see if this will work with this color. I need a little more juice. I got a little bit of the effect, but it's not quite doing what I want. I think I might need to do a little more experimenting on that. It's not really coming out the way I want it to. So let's try maybe a different color. Try black, see if it shows up a little better. So let's put here. It's a little bit of the same concept, just different medium. So right now, a little stark and looks very much like you put a pencil on it, but wet dragging, you can get that kind of blended in. Now we've got a little bit of a better result there. So now, can you do this also with oil? Yeah, sure, of course. It's a little tricky because you want to do a really small streak. So you got to have a real small amount of oil and just wisp it back a bit. And it helps to put this onto a matte surface. Let's do over that, I think. This one we'll do a little bit bigger. There you go. So, yeah, maybe if I was better with the chipping pencils, I'd like them more, obviously, but I'm not as big of a fan so far. So what I can do with oil, put like just a dab, well, too much probably, a little bit there. And do that same process and streak. And you can see, yeah, I could tell that I put too much on there. But you can use the oil to our advantage to erase it. Okay, and there we get a little bit of some streaking going on with those pieces, so not a bad result. Don't claim to be the best at this, you know, very much no Rinaldi, but something I'm working on. And this is the methodology that I use. So I'm going to just tinker away at this and just continue doing exactly what I showed you, but adding a lot more layers to it. I'll probably show you a final result here in video land, 5 seconds. All right, and with the magic of editing, here is, well, not quite the final result, but final for today. I'm gonna do some more looking at it maybe tomorrow and just try to see what else I want to play around with. So even like right there, I'm noticing I probably want to blend that a little better. It's looking a little bit too stark. But you can see where I've done a few dots here and just kind of done some streaking there. Don't want it to look too much like it's a gun port or something like that. I've got a few streaks on the top. Clean up that a little bit there. And you can see there. So there's that. And then when we flip sucker upside down, you can see how that's coming across and some of the different techniques that we've got on there. So hopefully you found that informative. I wish I was better with the pencils. It's something I'm learning to. I was hoping I could get a little bit better result with it, but I found I'm just so used to oils and I like oils. So here's where we're at. Just gonna keep touching. Just notice certain things. Oh, I just want to touch up that a little bit. And I might come back a little bit tomorrow too and just add some more layers into here so it doesn't look like just an overall one wash or something like that. And so it's just build up over time. But there we are. So hopefully you learned something. If you have any other tips, anything that you want me to show more in detail, but hopefully you thought this was informative, and see you on the next round.